Exactly.
We wanted to share a few little videos that have been making us laugh over the last couple of days. This is one that you're very excited about.
Not all me.
Yes, this is one that Kate's very excited about. I got sent this a few times from people saying, please, will you share this? Ranveer brought Schmizzle to work yesterday, didn't she?
Oh.
She picked up Schmizzle in the middle of her broadcast.
Her
of course,
gorgeous new puppy, which is so cute.
Who you all absolutely adored. But I think you might quite like this as well. This is a video of a little dog called Chapter. Now, Chapter has very, very poor eyesight. Hadn't seen its owner for quite a few days.
Well, it had to be, you know, well, we're all been in lockdown, haven't we? So being kept away. Yeah. And it's a moment.
Lovely moment where Chapter realises who the person is. Can't see him, of course, but then suddenly smells him. You see how excited he gets.
Chapter. Hello, Chapter.
Let's go and find somewhere nice to sit.
Hello, love, you all right? Yes, it's me. It's me. It's me. I'm here. I'm here. Here you go.
It's so lovely, isn't it? It's so lovely.
Little Chapter bouncing around.
Chapter bouncing around because he's getting on a bit, Chapter, and hearing not so good, eyesight not so good, but then the smell's there, and it's obviously so pleased to see his friend.
Our producer, Owen, just said he'll be bouncing around like that when Dame Vivienne Westwood turns up. Because we can't find her at the moment.
We can't
There was
find her.
another... Now, this is fascinating. A few weeks ago, you weren't in, Kate. There was some footage of a young boy...
Was it trouble-free that day?
He wasn't, no. It's never trouble-free. But there was footage of a young boy who was approached by a Kodiak bear, and he was really, really close, and his father filmed him walking away from the bear. And it's extraordinary footage of this young boy who was beside himself with excitement that the bear got so close.
So he was excited, but of course, Dad thinking, oh,
terrified.
my goodness,
We've got more bear footage for you, scary bear footage.
This is Mexico, I think.
Yeah, shot in an ecological park called Chipinique Ecological Park in Mexico. These people were just going for a hike and suddenly came across this bear who took great interest in them. Now, the thing about this little boy as well, like they are, you have to stay calm, apparently. I'm not sure I'd be able to stay calm.
Calm and very still.
Very still.
You can see the person in front in a minute can't quite contain themselves. They're just desperate to make a run for it.
I'm totally going for it, yeah.
Oh,
you know, you're the back of the pack,
here.
you're getting collateral damage.
Mates, but I'm off. But it is extreme. I mean, it looks like it works, doesn't it?
I don't know how you stay that calm, though. And it comes back, and just when you see the woman at the front who's shaking her hand because she's so nervous, and a little sniff again.
Oh, no. Was that
and then you think, thinking, is that going to taste good? No.
Oh, my goodness me. And then I think eventually they say, back away, don't they?
Yeah, and get away. And they get away.
Well.
Just going for a little hike through the ecological park, get a little sniff up from a bear.
Then you see it.
And then this might happen more to you if you're in a park around about. It won't be a bear that's coming up and having a little sniff, but how about a squirrel? The squirrels are taking over. This one, particularly, isn't happy with just coming to say hello. He wants a drink. This is amazing. Look, you can actually look. Go on.
See, squirrels are so good at making themselves look cute. It looks like he's going, please, please.
And then it actually drinks water out of the bottle.
Yeah.
It knew exactly what it was after.
It was a bit thirsty.
That's all it was.
That's all it was. What a little drop of water. But it's just the way it puts his little paws together.
Yeah.
In like a little begging motion.
And it did make me think as well that Kate may have missed my favourite viral of the year so far, which, of course...
This is Ben's favourite animal moments.
Which is a great excuse to show this video that was shot in Texas when a girl wanted to try and save this squirrel from the paddling pool.
I haven't seen this.
So she's in the paddling pool trying to get the squirrel out.
Well, good job. Why not?
I'm saving you! Let me save you!
It's quite an aggressive attempt to save. You know, sometimes you just want to help, don't you? And people don't know they're being helped.
Oh, it's like my life with you in many ways.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the squirrel was fine, by the way. We just want to put out
absolutely fine. Got out quite safely.
Always.
Alex has been treating us not to animals this morning, but to gorgeous, gorgeous scenery, aren't you? You're at Buckley Castle in Gloucestershire. And the weather is looking lovely so far. Good morning, Britain. It is just gone 8 o'clock.
Well, Dame Vivienne Westwood is preparing to be suspended in a cage in front of the Old Bailey this morning to protest the extradition of Julian Assange.
The 79-year-old fashion designer has been a very vocal supporter of the whistleblower, who is currently in custody awaiting his trial in September. Here's Angela Barnes.
They were explosive revelations that rocked the US security services when in 2010 Julian Assange leaked classified documents on his WikiLeaks website. To avoid extradition to the US, he sought refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy in London for nearly 7 years. His media addresses from the balcony proclaiming his fight for justice became a regular sight, as did his famous friends, with visits from fashion designer Vivienne Westwood, Eric Cantona and even pop star Lady Gaga. Baywatch star Pamela Anderson became one of his most vocal defenders, arriving with vegan lunches, and there were even rumours of a romance.
Well, we're friendly, yes. Yes.
Oh,
very friendly. Well, I love Julian. He's one of the most interesting people I've ever met. He's very brave, and there's nothing sexier than courage.
He fathered 2 children during his time in the embassy, and there were rumours of bad behaviour in there, claims of smearing faeces on the walls and late-night skateboarding. Ecuador's president called him a spoilt brat and his actions a national insult. When he left the embassy, the change in his physical appearance was stark. He's now residing here, the high-security Belmarsh prison, waiting for his US extradition trial to start.
Well, we're really delighted to say that Dame Vivienne Westwood has joined us now this morning from central London. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. So can you explain a little bit about what you are doing today and what the stunt is all about?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that your introduction is exactly the total misrepresentation of Julian Assange that's been going on for all that time. None of any of this is actually true. He's been trapped, and it's been a collusion of all the governments involved, America, Britain and Sweden. And from the very beginning, starting with a kind of honey trap, he's been completely trapped. It's a setup organised by the CIA. And I am a canary, and canaries are whistleblowers, but Julian is not exactly a whistleblower. He is the source of publishing whistleblower information. And he did an amazing thing when he, in 2006, established WikiLeaks as a safe haven for whistleblowers. And so I'm whistleblowing about the fact that Julian's not a whistleblower, but Chelsea Manning is a whistleblower. And for that reason, we understand we got the collateral murder video, which showed corruption and crime of America, and it went viral. And so we need the truth about Julian Assange. And here I am, sort of whistleblowing the truth. None of this is
so
true.
your point is he provided the platform for this to come out, and you're passionate about that. We can definitely see. He has been accused of things, though. There is a judicial process going on. Why wouldn't he go through that judicial process, just like everybody else has to face justice?
Well, this is the thing. He was trapped, and he was never allowed to free himself because he wanted to go to Sweden, Britain. He didn't want to go to Sweden. He could not go to Sweden because if he had put his head out the door, he would have been trapped, and they wanted to extradite him. There was a whole illegal thing going on here. If the embassy had given him political asylum, and the English ignored the fact that he had political asylum and said, no, we're going to arrest you on a fake bail
Yeah,
charge.
I mean, the Ecuadorian embassy did offer him political asylum for a long time, and yet the ambassador for Ecuador in the end described him as a spoiled brat for some of his behaviour. That's kind of, you know...
That's to stay in the embassy.
Yeah.
That's the last thing.
Let's talk, Dame Vivian, if we may, about...
Wanted to do. He got no son. He's in a terrible state.
Yeah, yeah. OK,
You know, his
so can you
health,
explain...
everything. He wanted to go to Ecuador, but he wasn't allowed.
OK. Can you explain a little bit about why you're climbing into the cage, then? Can you explain what the metaphor behind the stunt is and what you're trying to achieve today?
I am Julian Assange. I am the canary in the cage. He has been trapped by a big net, taken out of the sun and shoved in a cage. And the problem is they want to send him to America for a sentence of 175 years and stick him in a concrete block for a jail. And this could happen to every journalist because it is not a crime to publish the truth. And if they arrest him, then they should arrest the people of The Guardian, who also published the same truth that was given to them by WikiLeaks. They should arrest all the journalists who publish that, because that is what journalists do on a daily basis. They publish information that is given to them. You know, and they're saying, well, you're not allowed to publish information if it's given to you and we don't like it.
Well, you've made your points very clearly this morning, and I'm sure you're going to be get everybody talking when you get into that cage, and people see that. You've got your supporters there too, as well. Vivian Westwood talking to us this morning. Now, a much-delayed report by MPs will be published later, which looked at Russian attempts to interfere in British democracy.
It comes as Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab blasted Russia's reprehensible attempts to hack into scientific labs developing a COVID-19 vaccine. We're joined now in Westminster by the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Lisa Nandy. Thank you so much, Lisa Nandy, for joining us. Apologies for the delay in coming to you this morning. So, look, we're finally going to get a look at this report that we've been waiting for such a long time. What are you expecting to see and what are you hoping to get from it?
Well, I genuinely don't know what is in the report. It's been very delayed. The Prime Minister delayed its publication from autumn last year, so there's been a huge amount of anticipation about it. I suspect it will probably point to some evidence of Russian interference in British democracy in the EU referendum, but I'm not sure that we need the Russia report actually to know that this has been a pattern of behaviour from the Putin administration, not just repeated concerns about interference in British democracy that have been raised over the last few years, but we also had the attack in Salisbury, the use of chemical weapons on the streets of the UK, and there have been repeated concerns as well about interference in US democracy and across Europe too. It's why at the weekend I said that the government ought to take a much more consistent approach to Russia. It's very welcome that they've decided to bring forward legislation that would allow us to freeze the assets of Russian officials involved in human rights abuses, but that must also be extended to include Russian officials involved in corruption as well. The UK should not be a safe haven for dirty money obtained through corrupt practices, and the UK has to really stand up now and take a stance.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it, when dealing with powerful nations like Russia, nations which we need to get on with, which we need to trade with, which our economy is interwoven with on many levels, privately and maybe more formally. What is Labour's clear position on Russia? It has been somewhat muddled and confused in the past, certainly in the impression that's been given. How would you sort of reframe Labour's position with Russia?
Well, I think we got it wrong on Russia, particularly in relation to the Salisbury attacks. The initial response was to equivocate, to question who was responsible, and to call for consensus and dialogue. That was corrected quite quickly, but I think the damage was done, and I think we do need to take a much more robust response to Russia. One of the things that I've been asking the Foreign Secretary to do over the last few days is to ensure that there's a more consistent approach across government, because although he has had some very strong words in recent days, and he started belatedly to reach out to other countries as well to build alliances to help us deal with this together, what we haven't seen is a consistent approach from all government departments. UK Export Finance, for example, underwrites Gazprom, President Putin's state-backed oil and gas company, to a very significant extent, and UK officials have taken significant amounts of gifts and hospitality from that company. We need a proper strategy in relation to Russia, and that has to include building alliances with other countries who find themselves in a similar position, whether that's France, Germany or others. The US Secretary of State is in the UK today. There'll be meetings taking place later, and I expect that's something that we would want to discuss with him. I hope that the Prime Minister will do the same as well.
Isn't Gazprom one of the examples, though, where don't we use that energy? And haven't we created a situation where we need the energy that Gazprom provides?
Well, one of the things that we've been calling for some time, I was the Shadow Energy Secretary 4 years ago who was pressing the government very hard on this, is to have far less reliance on other countries, particularly where those relationships are becoming increasingly problematic, far more energy security at home. And it's one of the reasons that we've been questioning some of the nuclear power projects, want to see national security assessments of those, because we welcome investment in our energy system from all sorts of countries, including China. But what we don't do is allow the UK to build those ourselves. And if we had more investment in a homegrown strategy, not just around energy, but around our 5G network, there's been a lot of debate around the role of Huawei in our 5G network in recent days, we would be in a much stronger position, far more strategically independent and able to speak from a position of our values. And that's what we want the government to do.
Yeah, so you want that resolute, you want that firm action. To be fair to Dominic Raab, we've seen some of that more recently. They've cancelled the role of Huawei in our rolling out of our 5G network. That came out a few days ago. And then, of course, the extradition treaty they have cancelled with China, and they're looking at trying to protect some of those Hong Kongers that can come back here to the UK and offer them asylum as well. Is that the sort of action that you want to see? I'd imagine you welcome both those things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sympathetic to Dominic Raab. I think he is trying, as the Foreign Secretary, to advance this case within government, but he seems to be met with a different approach from across government departments, and that's why the government has been very slow to bring in some of those measures. But there is a cross-party consensus now, from the Conservative backbenches to the Labour front bench, that the government has to put national security right at the heart of our considerations about foreign policy, and we have to take a much more robust response. You mentioned the situation in Hong Kong. We warmly welcome the measures that the Foreign Secretary set out yesterday, but one of the problems, of course, is that we're offering safe haven for former BNO passport holders, those young pro-democracy activists who are bravely standing up to the actions of the Chinese government aren't covered by those measures, and that's why we've been pushing the government to go further.
Talking of activists this morning, Lisa, I think you were listening to our interview with Dame Westwood, who has now climbed into her bird cage at protest of the treatment and what she believes is the stifling and caging of Julian Assange. What did you make of what she had to say, and what would Labour do differently?
I mean, I couldn't see the images, and I was sort of slightly struggling to follow what she's doing. Is she actually dressed as a canary?
Well, she's in bright yellow. We're looking at her now. She's in a cage, making the point that he is like a canary in a cage, and also relating it, I think, to how canaries were used in mines as a warning.
Yeah.
And he is a warning of what happens when what she believes freedom of speech is stifled.
I mean, I think this is an enormously complex case because obviously what the courts will have to assess is the balance between protecting whistleblowers. Whistleblowers play an incredibly important part in Britain and across the world, but also assess the responsibility that people have to make sure that other people aren't put at risk by those actions. There are all sorts of issues that are thrown up by this case, but there's a judicial process going on, and I don't think it's for me to preempt the outcome of that. I think we need to wait and see how the courts actually weigh those considerations and what judgment they come to.
OK, well, we appreciate you joining us this morning. That's the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Lisa Nandy.
You're watching Good Morning Britain. Should we remind ourselves of the main news stories we've been covering this morning, as we've just been hearing a long-awaited report on alleged Russian interference in British politics is going to be finally published today, about 10:30. It's expected to show how Russia attempted to influence the Scottish independence referendum in 2014, but it's thought unlikely to show evidence that it played any part in the Brexit vote a few years later.
And in the next few minutes here at the Foreign Office, senior MPs will be arriving for their first in-person cabinet meeting since March 17th, just a couple of hours before the publication of the Russia report after a 7-month delay. We'll get all the credible evidence that's available finally, and also hear the true extent of Russia's involvement and influence in British politics.
Public Secretary